Welcome to Life is for Living. I'm Kylee Buckley and I'm here with David J. Riddell from the School of Living Wisdom. David, the empowering question. Isn't it good when we are able to offer back a question that is positive, that can really feed into the heart of the issue that one might be dealing with?
The empowering question is my favourite tool as a counsellor. I call it the big brother of the open question. Most people are familiar with the closed question, which requires a yes-no answer, and the open question that can stimulate conversation. The empowering question goes one step further. It goes to the heart of the matter and invites the person or the object to actually consider it as an invitation to greater self-awareness. If you respond well to an empowering question, you will always make a leap ahead in your self-awareness and in your journey through life. A good empowering question is an extremely valuable device in bringing mental and emotional health. And with one empowering question, listen to this, I have been able to bring people out of bipolar disorder. I've been able to bring them out of ADHD. I've been able to bring them out of battle fatigue, out of depression, and out of chronic anxiety and panic-related illnesses. I've been able to put businesses that were going bankrupt back on track, and I've been able to heal one marriage after another, possibly hundreds of marriages, by asking the two people in the marriage the right empowering question. Now, there are as many different empowering questions as there are people and problems, but some of them are much more generic than others. And so just to get you started, can I give you a couple of examples?
Please.
What is the greatest disappointment in your life? Have you made peace with it yet? What is the greatest disappointment in your life? Have you made friends with it yet? That would be one. A divorce or infertility or a vehicle accident, a tragic motor vehicle accident that you contributed to. Or perhaps another one might be, where do you think all your anger is actually sourced? Where is it coming from? Is there a common source to all of these episodes of rage? And where do you think it began? Now that could be an interrogative question because I need an answer to it if we're going to progress the counselling session. But a true empowering question I don't need an answer to. They need to answer it for themselves. You know, when people become bitter, I say to them, I notice you're feeding your soul on poison. Are you expecting the other person to die because of that? Because somebody said that bitterness and unforgiveness is like taking poison while expecting the other person to die. Mm-hmm. Dr. Phil made himself a very, very wealthy man with just one empowering question that he often resorts to. How is that working for you? Is his favorite empowering question. So he asks that repeatedly to bring people to the point of crisis, of change, and of self-reflection. And I don't know any better tool to bring rapid self-reflection and repentance than the empowering question. Here's another one. Did you know that if you always do what you've always done, you can only ever get what you've always got? Is it time for change? That's another empowering question. Or what is the feeling you feel when somebody corrects you and you're overwhelmed with anger or resentment or anxiety? When did you begin to confuse correction with rejection? Another empowering question. Another one might be, do you consider that you've made friends with your past yet? Because it's a long time with you. There are literally hundreds of them, but they must be tailor-made. There's no such thing as a one-size-fits-all empowering question. And the only way that I can tailor make them for my client, because this is setting the stage for a radical conversion, a radical realization they've been going in the wrong direction, I have to set the stage for that question by talking to them and listening to them and hearing their heart. I don't know what the right empowering question is until I've paid my dues by listening and questioning with data gathering questions. I say to my understudy counselees, don't try and ask an empowering question until you've got on board. If you don't get on board, you don't know which question to ask. And the only way to get on board is to ask lots and lots of data gathering questions. And then when you feel primed and ready, you can go for the jugular, the thing that's choking their life and damaging their life and destroying their family, with just one well-constructed, crafted question. So I've made a 40-year practice out of looking for the right question. Sometimes I can come at it within 5 minutes of meeting the client, but I'll still hold back on it until I'm certain it's the right one. And sometimes I can go a whole session and I cannot find that question because they're what we call a slippery customer. And no matter what you ask them, they can distort it or avoid it. Or it's like chasing soap around the shower, I often say. But if I can nail them down, then I can get to the real issue.
I remember you asking me an empowering question. What legacy do I want to leave my children?
Oh, that's a beauty, isn't it?
That was a great one. I woke up at 4 o'clock in the morning still thinking about it.
Well, they do that. Empowering questions can go off in your brain a week or a month later, and suddenly you get it. But once you get the right empowering question, it propels you forward in your personal growth. In just a moment, it propels you forward. Do you remember Jesus saying to Peter, "Who do men say that I am?" That was a data gathering question. And then he had a gotcha moment when he said, "Who do you say that I am?" And that is the slam dunk of the counseling world, you know. Who do you say that I am? And you'll see, when you understand this topic, you'll see it right through the Bible, and you'll see that it forms the crux of many a great philosopher's speech. And that question comes down to the ground of your being. Who are you? Who do you want to be? What do you want to stand for? What do you want your legacy to be? Those are the bigger questions, and if they're asked in the right context and in the right framework, they can be a gift from the gods, because they will just stand you on your feet and you'll be facing the right direction at the end of it.
Yes. Well, here's some truth coaches, a couple of them that I dug up on empowering questions. If you've got the manual, it's R154. When you can ask an empowering question, you will no longer need to shout or abuse or convey your anger and fears. So,
well, I've silenced a lot of angry people by saying, when did you first confuse correction with attack, correction with criticism, or correction with rejection? Because they've been avoiding any correction since that very day. And if I can get them to engage with that question, we can help them realize that actually their brain, their very own mind, is misrepresenting the meaning and the nature of that correction. And they've never ever been corrected without feeling panic or desperate or guilty or rejected. So we've got to address the issue. The empowering question always does that with grace and dignity.
It does. Here's another one, R153. In a crucial and insecure world, a word of reassurance is always welcome, but it's still much easier to criticize.
Yes. Well, sometimes you've got to ask a person, you've been criticizing this and grizzling about that. I just need to ask you, do you consider yourself to be part of the solution or part of the problem?
I like that one.
And
It is a good.
sometimes, and sometimes I'll ask a spouse, have you ever asked yourself, what must it be like to live with me? Now, there's an empowering question. With my procrastination, with my unreliability, with my narcissism, with my bad temper, with my carelessness or messiness, what must it be like to actually live with me? And
Hmm.
what pressure is my spouse or friend under that they have to resign the position? What kind of pressure must they be under to leave me, abandon me, or to avoid me? What pressure have I put them under to make me a threat to them?
Very good. And, you know, it's really about being mature emotionally, isn't it? Because I wouldn't think an insecure person could even think, let alone ask or even answer that sort of question. The two, don't you think? Some
Well,
people,
they can be very, very challenging, but that of course is why we have a counselling session so
oh,
that I can secure them, secure their safety, secure their trust, so that this question doesn't unravel them. But together we can work out the right answer and we can work out how to be safe from pitching into a total overreaction in the process.
yeah, true. Well, look, here's some that you've got written down. Why does that question pose a threat to you? Ooh, ouch. That's a goodie too. People start reacting when you ask them something. Well, why does that question pose a threat to you?
It sounds like a data gathering question, but as the counsellor, I don't really have to have the answer, but they do. They really have to face up to that. Why am I so threatened by a perfectly legitimate question? Why do I start thinking they're betraying me, they're offside, they're letting me down? Why do I start feeling betrayed and disappointed just by a perfectly legitimate question? I need to front up to that, or I'm always going to be insecure.
Mhm.
Yeah.
What need in your life is that habit trying to meet?
Pornography, binging, eating, anorexia, bulimia, vaping. You know, why are you vaping? What need are you trying to meet in your life? I don't know, I just enjoy it. Yeah, but to enjoy it, you must be getting some relief. What do you need relief from? Are you an anxious person? Yeah, well, I get stressed, don't we all? Well, what say we deal with the stress so you can be stress free?
Mhm.
Then the vaping or the weed, the marijuana or whatever it is you do to relieve stress all becomes redundant. Would you like that?
Mhm.
Or I say to them, did you ever imagine yourself becoming a drug addict when you were a child or a teenager? Is that the life you actually wanted? Is this actually the way you want your life to go? Not being able to function without your daily dose of substance abuse? You know, is your life getting better or worse with gambling? Is your life getting better or worse with stealing? Is your life getting better or worse with sexual promiscuity? It's time for you to front that question because I don't think you are. And I can see you hurting yourself and everybody who loves you if you don't ask that question and front up to it.
Yeah. What, oh, sorry, does your form of comfort heal the pain or merely hide it for a time?
Most addicts believe that whatever it is they do, they are healing the pain, they are fixing the pain. It is their fix. And it's a big shock to them to finally realize that not only is their addiction not ever going to fix their pain, it's actually going to keep making it worse and worse and worse. Most addicts have not got the brain or the time to figure that out. And so they gamble again, knowing that this time it's going to fix their poverty or their debt, or they take another cigarette or another puff, knowing that this time it's going to fix their nervousness, or they take another drink, knowing that this time it's going to fix their regret or their shyness or their fear of people. It never occurs to them that not only will it not do that, it will actually become the source of their anxiety tomorrow. or their stress next week. It'll become the source of their poverty. Not only is it not fixing it, it's actually multiplying it. So the empowering question says, is this substance your friend or your enemy? Is this habit your friend or your enemy? Is it making your life better, or is it making your life worse? Because you're going to go on deceiving yourself until you understand that this only ever makes your life worse. I can deliver people from their enemies, that's no problem, Kylee, but I can't deliver them from their friends. They have to figure out which is which.
They do. They do.
Let me tell you my favorite empowering question for people contemplating ending their marriage. A lot of people watching this are going to be wondering whether they want to stay or go, and the pros and cons of divorcing. Let me say my empowering question for such people is, everybody has bad habits, everybody can be difficult to live with. The real issue is, on balance, is your life better or worse for being with this person? Because if your life is better, then you better sit tight. Only if your life is worse in every way should you actually seriously consider divorce. The reason I say that is because it's perfectly common sense that God gave marriage to make our lives better, to make our lives blessed. When marriage becomes a curse, why would you stay under that curse? I think it's a fair question. And ultimately, is God legalistic, or does he have mercy? And can he release us from our marriage vows if it's like being out of our depth in a swimming pool and slowly but surely drowning? Surely the God I serve wouldn't demand that his child stays in the pool till he swims or he drowns. That isn't the God I serve. But having said that, you've got to look at this question very carefully. On balance, is this person proving to be a liability in my life or an asset?
Good question. Why do you assume you have to heal yourself?
Well, some people are quite sure that a counsellor wouldn't have any real answers, an expert wouldn't know anything that they don't already know, or that if you go and get some help, it proves how sick you are, how unstable you are. My feeling is that unless your name is Mr. Bean, you shouldn't do dental surgery on yourself. And for the same thing, I don't think you should you should refrain from visiting a counsellor on the basis that you should be able to fix yourself. Hey, you're the cause of the problem. So digging around introvertedly and navel gazing probably isn't going to find the cause of the problem. It's going to find more problem.
Okay, what is the real issue at stake here? That's a good question. That's an arrow, isn't it? Straight in there.
What's really at stake could be the viability of the family business, could be the viability of the marriage, or it could be retaining the respect of the people around you. If you don't make some changes, it may be you're going to lose that respect or that credibility or that marriage or that career or that business, or worst of all, your children's trust, because children do not obey and submit to parents that they no longer trust. That's the death of the family when that happens.
What are the limits to your responsibilities towards your loved one?
That's a good empowering question. It reminds us not to drop into codependency. It reminds us that loving them doesn't mean we have to make them happy and we have to carry responsibility for making them happy. It reminds us that we shouldn't play both ends of the court when we're in a match. It reminds us that their response is their responsibility. All we have to do is encourage them and warn them when we see danger stalking. If you've encouraged them and you've warned them, then you've done your job. Don't slip over into over-functioning, rescuing, enabling, getting in between their choices and the consequences. That's not love. That's overfunctioning, and you need to look at yourself and realize that overfunctioning is an addiction of a very severe kind in some people. And because they are overfunctioning, you're raising spoiled children who are allergic to disappointment, and they are tomorrow's borderline personality disorders. They are tomorrow's narcissists. I got to tell you, as a general rule, over-functioning parents raise narcissists. And that's a problem when your child is allergic to disappointment. And if I ask you, how did your child come to be rebellious or allergic to disappointment? How did you contribute? I didn't say caused, I said contributed to that situation. Well, that's a stop and think moment, isn't it? And that's when the empowering question comes. Excuse me, we don't need that.
Well, we've just got a couple of others. We'll do these and then we'll finish off. What do you rely on most for your self-worth, and how reliable is it?
Well, if you're pretty, you could rely on your face. If you have a good shape, you could rely on your body. You could rely on your beautiful hair. You could rely on your bank account. There's all sorts of sources of self-worth. Maybe it's your degree or diploma, or maybe it's your status at the office. There's all kinds of sources of self-worth, and people can rely on the set of wheels, the jazzy car they drive, or the wardrobe that they choose from every morning. But I got to tell them that if that's the source of their worth and value, they're skating on real thin ice, they're living in a fool's paradise, and sooner or later it's going to collapse underneath them. Sooner or later they're going to discover that source is not going to last. If you build it on your children, what happens when they end up in prison for a shameful deed? If you build it on the love of your husband or your wife, and you discover them drifting away from you in a soul tie or in an affair, you're going to be devastated. No two ways about it. So consider carefully what your significance is built on. Consider carefully what your worth and value is built on. And don't keep going from one source to another. As soon as one collapses, you move along to another. Jesus said, build your house on a rock. Stop building it on sand. There's no end to the grains of sand that you could build it on, but they're all going to fail you. Even your culture, even your ethnicity, even your language is eventually going to fail. So think hard about that. I want to build on a rock. I want to know that my worth and value comes from one source that is unshakable and eternal and will continue after my last heartbeat. That's my hope, because nothing else makes sense. And that's an empowering question.
Yes, very true, very true. And the last one is a really goodie. You ready?
I thought that was the last one.
No, this is the last one.
Okay.
How much will you have to suffer, or your family suffer, before you get serious help?
Love that cost-benefit analysis. I love that cost-benefit ratio. How much will you have to suffer before you figure it out? How much will you suffer before you look in the mirror and ask yourself the hard questions? Will you have to go bankrupt first and take the whole family into debt? Or will you have to lose a child to a drowning because you didn't believe in life jackets? Or will you end up causing a motor accident because you reserve the right to go as fast as you like? How much will you have to suffer before you learn to put your seatbelt on in compliance with the law? Or protect yourself when you're using a 9-inch skill saw or a chainsaw? How much will you have to suffer? Boy, if I'd only wore those earmuffs when I was a lad on the end of a chainsaw, I wouldn't have non-stop tinnitus today. Tinnitus is a terrible thing. I wish somebody had asked me an empowering question, because I suffer today because I couldn't figure out that earplugs were not an optional extra. They were an essential requirement. And today I meet with clients every day who are suffering because they trusted the wrong person, or because they spent more money than they made, or because they didn't respect their brain when they plugged it in to powerful psychotropic medications or drugs that basically blew their memory. So it's a pretty tough question, but it's a very important question. How much will you have to suffer before you figure out that your own mind is your worst enemy, and you really need to do a 2 week living wisdom school to get the deal to figure that out?
Mhm.
That was an advertisement in case you didn't realise.
Well,
But
that's
we run those schools in Nelson, New Zealand 4 times a year, and they are life changing. 2 weeks to radically improve a life is my goal and my commitment. And so far, we haven't had any complaints because the people who come will learn to do whatever it takes to have a wonderful life.
definitely, and it touches every area of your life as well. Yeah.
You sound like a convert.
Funny that, isn't it?
Well, I've spent 70 years looking for wisdom, seriously searching for wisdom. I looked through philosophy, Kylie. I looked through epistemology. Most people don't even know what it means. I did a postgraduate degree in epistemology so that I would know that what I believed really was the truth. I studied theology. I studied religions. I studied the Bible. I studied science and quantum physics. I've spent my whole life looking for truth. And
Mhm.
here you are, dragging it out of me any way you can, and I love you for it. Well done, girl.
Well, we've got plenty more to share. So, everybody, please like, subscribe, and share. And look, do put a comment in if there's anything that you're struggling with. Uh, Also, on the description, you can contact the School of Living Wisdom. Um, on the website, it's there. Have a read of it and send David and Rosemary, his lovely wife, an email and slot yourself into one of these courses. Ask them when they are, and or if you're like a one-on-one, to actually talk into some things and get some resolutions in your life. You know, life's so important. We only get one chance at it. You know.
And if you want me to change my lighting so I don't have a shiny spot on my bald patch, hey, give me a break. That's the only halo I'm ever going to have.
Awesome, David. All right. See you next time, everyone.
I
Bye.
don't. Good night.